United States Marine Corps presents Marine Story, starring Eddie Albert, well-known Broadway and Hollywood star, and the music of the United States Marine Band. And now, the United States Marine Corps presents Marine Story. From the annals of our history come the tales of men of the Marine Corps, men of skill and courage, men who cherished the ideals of freedom and democracy, men who fought to preserve them. To the service of these ideals, on land, sea, and in the air, are dedicated the men of the United States Marine Corps. Listen now to Eddie Albert as Captain Samuel Bacon, a Marine hero in the War of 1812.
Do you insist on arguing the point, sir?
I do, Captain Bacon. I certainly do.
Well, then once again, Judge Nicholson, consider. One British fleet is moving down the St. Lawrence. Another is now at the mouth of the Potomac.
I have already argued this point with my young nephew, Francis Scott Key. Washington is the British objective. Washington, I say.
No, Judge, no, Judge. Admiral Cochrane will move north, here to Baltimore.
My nephew Francis holds the same stubborn opinion. And his judgment of military matters is notoriously unreliable.
I do not know the gentleman, sir, but in this case, I think he's correct.
Cochrane's objective is the capital.
I think not. Two fleets, one to the north, one to the south. Now, let's assume that you're in command of the enemy forces.
That's ridiculous.
You, as commander of the British, would land one army by way of the St. Lawrence, and at the same time would land another by way of the Chesapeake. And you'd march to join at some midpoint in the country.
Why, you put victory in the palm of my hand.
Exactly, sir. That's the British strategy.
Then in all seriousness, Captain, you do expect an attack on Baltimore?
That, sir, is why the Marines have come to Fort McHenry. Colonel Armistead?
Yes, Captain Bacon.
The British fleet, sir, is reported moving into the Chesapeake.
Captain, how many of your men are cannoneers?
They're all trained in cannon service, sir, on ship or land.
We shall remain in the fort. Captain Bacon.
Yes, sir?
One sector of the battlement requires men of iron discipline.
We await your orders.
I refer to the powder magazine. The British will hurl heavy shells and explosive rockets. Fortress is not shell-proof.
My men are accurate gunners, sir. They'll keep the British on the move.
Perhaps so, but should they score a direct hit on the magazine...
There will be no panic, sir. My men will remain at their guns.
Captain Bacon?
Yes, sir?
I'm Francis Scott Key, sir. According to my uncle, Judge Nicholson, you are to dissuade me.
Dissuade you? From what, may I ask?
From sailing down the Chesapeake in a skiff to meet Admiral Cochrane of the British Royal Navy.
Oh, and convince him to sail back to England.
Oh, not quite. Merely to persuade him to release a dear friend of mine, a certain Dr. Beams, now a prisoner aboard the Admiral's ship.
You know, in all probability, you will join your doctor friend in the brig.
Oh, well, I might add, Captain, that I'm gifted in persuasion.
Uh-huh.
I am by profession a lawyer, a barrister of some note here in Baltimore and in Washington.
Admiral Cochrane may be a little too busy to engage in legal disputes. My advice to you, Key, is to remain here in Baltimore.
Thank you, Captain Bacon. And now, having done your duty by your good friend, Judge Nicholson, I shall do mine by my good friend, Dr. Beams.
I see. You're quite determined.
Quite, sir.
I could prevent you by placing you under guard.
Sir?
Well, however, if you deem it your duty to risk your skin for a friend...
Indeed I do.
Well, then I shall not interfere. I merely caution you to remember one thing.
Yes, sir.
Carry a white flag, a flag of truce, so you'll draw no fire.
Thank you, Captain Bacon. I will.
Yeah, Of all the harebrained projects, Captain Bacon, this is the worst.
No, Judge Nicholson. Your nephew seemed quite convinced where his duty lay.
He'll wind up a prisoner of war and talk himself into a dungeon for the rest of his life. Lawyer, a poetaster, a scribbler of verses. Why, Cochrane will flay him alive.
I'm not so sure you're right, sir. You know, you're already guilty of one inaccurate prediction concerning Admiral Cochrane. He did not head for Washington.
Oh, well.
Well, never mind, Judge. What's your next step?
Sir, as a leading citizen of Baltimore, I shall raise a militia. And as for my harebrained nephew, well, for him I shall probably have to raise a ransom.
And so you came to secure the release of your friend.
As I've stated, Admiral Cochrane, my good friend, Dr. Beans of Washington.
He came for his friend. Nearly sailed out to find his friend. Well, after all, who's the British Royal Navy to hold his friend, Dr. Beans? You say you are a lawyer?
That's correct, sir.
Well, the clientele of my brig is becoming quite select. First a doctor, now a barrister.
Am I being taken as a prisoner, sir?
Shall we say, detained until tomorrow morning?
Tomorrow morning, sir.
By that time, we shall have Baltimore. And I shall see that you and the worthy Dr. Beans are landed safely on the wharf. Or what there is left of it.
What brings you to the fort, Judge Nicholson?
My feet, Captain Bacon. These same arthritic feet that cannot take me 14 miles to North Junction,
North Junction.
where my militia is going to help throw back a British landing.
They attacked by land, too.
By land and sea.
Uh-huh.
And I've come to serve, Captain.
In what capacity, sir?
Certainly not as commander of the British forces. I can wheel powder and shot to the gunners.
Rather strenuous work for a man your age, Judge Nicholson. Besides, the powder magazine's no place for you.
That I deny, sir. I shall wheel powder and shot with the best of your men.
Dr. Beans,
Yes, Francis?
can you see the fort?
The flash of guns and rockets.
I don't think the fort will yield.
If my prayers are of any avail, the fort will hold.
Now, rather than be conveyed to a captured Baltimore, I'd prefer to spend the rest of my life in a dungeon.
Amen.
Look, Dr. Beans, there's a touch of dawn in the sky.
How long will the bombardment last?
Well, the fort still holds. All night I've watched the flash of its guns.
They'll not yield.
The flag still flies, and the guns return the fire.
Good news! Good news, Judge Nicholson! The British have been turned back at North Junction.
Bravo, Captain Bacon. That's half the battle. Half the battle.
Fire away! Fire away!
Fire away, torrent! Captain Bacon, they've stopped firing. Admiral Cochrane stopped firing. They're giving up. We've beaten them, Captain Bacon. We've beaten them.
How's your back now, Judge Nicholson?
Oh, sir, I'll take an oath that I wheeled enough munitions to blast Cochrane out of the sea.
That's scarcely an exaggeration, sir. No one will deny your share of the victory.
Where do you think Cochrane has gone, Captain?
Sailing for England, perhaps.
My harebrained nephew with him, no doubt. Captain, you should have dissuaded him. He had a promising career as a barrister, a fine legal mind. Now, I would not say this in his presence, Captain, but I...
Good morning, Uncle. And good morning to you, Captain Bacon. Sir, my respects to you for the gallant defense of the fort.
Francis, then you never did get to Cochrane.
Oh, yes, indeed. This morning, Admiral Cochrane put Dr. Beans and myself over the side in a small boat.
He released you.
On the ground that Britain already had enough doctors and certainly enough lawyers.
Fortune smiles on fools.
Captain Bacon, from the British ship I saw it all, sir. The defense of Fort McHenry was a A deed of glory.
Thank you, sir.
Which I've endeavored to commemorate in a bit of verse.
Oh, a taster. Scribbled on the back of an envelope.
Would you care to read them, Captain?
Let me see, my boy. Let me see. Oh, say, can you see, by the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and the bright star.
Thank you, Eddie Albert, for a fine and moving performance.
Thank you, Ralph Camargo. I really enjoyed playing the role of Captain Samuel Bacon. The story's a bit of history that certainly deserves to be told. To me, it pointed up the fact again that the Marines are close to the heart of our nation's history. That's the source of the great Marine Corps tradition. You can become part of that tradition. I mean particularly men between the ages of 17 and 30. Today, the Marine Corps is accepting a selected number of volunteers. You'll be entitled to superb Marine Corps training in radio, radar, diesel mechanics, aircraft, and other highly skilled trades that Marine Corps pays. Remember, volunteer for tradition and career. For volunteers, it's the Marine Corps first.
That was Eddie Albert, today's guest star of Marine Story. Listen again next week when the United States Marine Corps presents Marine Story with another Hollywood star of screen, stage, and radio. And the music of the United States Marine Band.